Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about Nintendo Switch, PS2, 3DS, and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about PlayStation 2 emulation with PCSX2, and PCSX2 may have improved performance by just a little bit. So as of version 1.7.4708, it says counters plus DMA optimized when internal interrupts run. Now it's worth pointing out that these performance improvements apply to specific situations. For example, in certain FMVs they noticed a 10 to 30% performance improvement, and in-game between 1 to 7% faster. As for the games they've tested, we've got some heavy hitters. We've got Oni, Final Fantasy X2, Final Fantasy X, Ratchet & Clank, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2, Gran Turismo 4, Silent Hill 2, GTA 3, and Shadow Man Second Coming. Someone says these changes give them about a 15% speed up on GTA. And someone else says between a 25 to 30% boost in Ape Escape 3 when using the radar. As always, I recommend picking up the latest nightly build for PCSX2, and you can pick it up right from PCSX2.net. And if you're on Linux, you may want to check out FlatHub. The PCSX2 team has taken over the PCSX2 FlatHub, and they've been updating it quite frequently. You can see now that it's verified. The latest build here is 1.7.4718, which was released just a day ago. You'll get the performance improvement here. And speaking about performance improvements, next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation on PC and Android with Yuzu. And Yuzu just released their progress report. Now it's worth pointing out that we're just covering this at a high level, and this is a massive progress report. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. It's very well written and an entertaining read. In terms of improvements this month, graphical changes are pretty close to the top of the list. For example, vertex explosions in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were fixed using high GPU accuracy. On the left here is the old, and you can see some vertex explosions. And on the right is the update, and there are no vertex explosions. Snow and rain has been fixed in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and some particle corruption has been fixed in Tears of the Kingdom. There's fixes for erratic particle movement in Super Mario Odyssey, and fixes for eyebrows in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Save file thumbnails have been fixed in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Here's before and, well, here's after. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is far more accurate to the actual Switch. You can now bump anisotropic filtering up to 16 times, but you may get a bit of a performance hit. While Vulkan remains the top choice for renderer, OpenGL got a performance improvement between 2 to 10%. Moving over to Android, and the developers have been no less busy. You already know this based on a previous video or two of mine, but yes, Yuzu now supports Mali GPUs. It's still far from optimal, but support is there. And it's partially thanks to Bylaws, one of the developers of Skyline. On top of that, thanks to German77, they've added the ability to install game updates or DLC. On top of all of that, there were input improvements, audio improvements, and a whole bunch more. I do recommend checking out the progress report. Yuzu developers absolutely killed it this month, and I can't wait to see what they do next month. Next up, we're talking about emulating on your Xbox in retail mode, not in dev mode. And apparently a package uses new techniques to avoid automatic detection and banning. I don't recommend using it, but you can if you want. Apparently the package is called LaBomb, and you can install Dolphin, XBSX 2.0, Xenia, and RetroArch. But it appears that it will cost $2 to get whitelisted to install it. And I'm not entirely sure if it's $2 per month or just $2 for the initial install and you're good to go. However, this is not a foolproof way forever. In fact, they say eventually Microsoft will find out about the apps and terminate the account. So I guess use at your own risk. Next up, we're talking about some ROM hacks, and this one I find incredibly interesting. It's Light Fantasy for the SNES, which is an RPG. It just received a fan English translation, and this is thanks to DeepL, Google, and ChatGPT. Someone is using AI for very interesting things here, and things I'm a big fan of. And speaking about things I'm a fan of, next up here we're talking about Doom on the Atari XL XE. It looks absolutely awful, but it is impressive that it's actually working on the system. I'll drop a link to the article in the description below in the event that you want to check it out. And if you want to see some gameplay, I'll drop a link to this video in the description below as well. Next up here, if you're a fan of Spyro 3 on the PlayStation, you may be a fan of this ROM hack. Spyro 3.5 Return to the Forgotten Realms is now available. They say here for the past 6 months they've been working on an extremely in-depth ROM hack of Spyro 3. Looking at the details here, and this seems to be a pretty big ROM hack, over 135 of the eggs in game have been moved or functionally changed. New atlas clues pertaining to the revised egg locations, full texture hacks of around 1/3 of the levels in the game, and more. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the YouTube trailer in the description below and feel free to check it out. There's a lot of very helpful information in the description of this one. And the last ROM hack we're talking about is called Celeste, Mario's Zap and Dash. If you're a fan of Celeste and you're a fan of Super Mario on the NES, you may be a fan of this ROM hack, which is based on Super Mario for the NES and changes it up quite a bit. The developer of this one does say it was pretty hastily done, but the end results here I would say are something pretty unique and interesting. Next up, we're talking about Minecraft clone MineClone 2, which just got a brand new release called the Very Nice Release, version 0.84. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the video in the description below and feel free to check it out. They've added in cherry blossoms, they've improved pig riding, they've nerfed skeleton damage, and a whole bunch of bug fixes and a whole bunch more. And for those wondering, yes, MineClone 2 is 100% free and open source. And speaking about free and open source, next up we're talking about Linux. And apparently Linux has achieved a 3% desktop market share. It might not seem like much, but this is a massive improvement and the best arguably it's ever been in 30 years. Next up, we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Citra, and Citra got a brand new feature. If you pick up a recent version of Citra and head into your emulation configuration and click on graphics and then click on screen layout, you should see something called hybrid screen. It's a brand new feature. Moving on, and we're talking about N64 emulation with Simple 64, and Simple 64 has a couple of small changes. The first one here was released 3 days ago. They say synced with the latest Mupen 64 Plus core changes, and this one is called 2023.07.1. And then just 15 hours ago, at least at the time of filming, 2023.07.2 fixes a crash in some games. And last up here, we're talking about GBA emulation with VisualBoyAdvance M, and this one just got a brand new update as well, the first update since December of last year. So as of this video, version 2.1.6 is the latest update, and in my opinion, it's a pretty big update overall. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes, improvements, and brand new features. For example, this point here, increase max cart size from 32 megabytes to 128. Some ROM hacks are bigger than 32 megs, so this will make VisualBoyAdvance M more compatible with more ROM hacks out there. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.